Hello. In this video, I will be analyzing this corpus from the perspective of discourse analysis and related approaches. The corpus consists of the two final parts, known as Chapter 5, Nostalgia Bait, and Conclusion and Outro, of the YouTube video called Behold the Worst Season of Winx Club, Stand Hell, please, made by Unicorn of War, also known as Thomas Vaccaro. Now, since I said that I will be analyzing this corpus from a discourse analysis perspective, let me first place discourse analysis within the broader field of discourse studies. The former, discourse analysis, or DA, being more methodological in focus, is concerned with a language, a practice, and a context component, in that it seeks to explain how people typically appropriate language under specific contextual factors. Discourse theory, on the other hand, is more interested in the epistemological and political aspects of discourse, and as such focuses on the connection between power, knowledge, and subjectivity. I will keep with discourse analysis and define it further, following Albajuez and Paltridge in saying that it is a study of, or the analysis of language in use, which implies studying both the text and the context. Here, text has to be understood as the linguistic material, the pure language conveyed either through speaking or writing, while the context is the environment in which these linguistic productions occur. Therefore, I will follow these somewhat simple definitions of discourse as the process of using language, and of discourse analysis as the study of this process, which implies studying both the text and the context. Let's start with that final aspect, context. And SFL divides the context into register, genre, and ideology. The first one is further subdivided into these three context variables, mode, tenor, and field, which have a direct impact on the corresponding meanings that language makes, textual, interpersonal, and ideational. The first one, mode, is the role that language has in a specific situation. In this case, in the YouTube video, language is essential in that it would be difficult, if not impossible, to think of other ways in which the YouTuber could convey all these abstract and complex meanings without using language. As a result, he uses language all throughout the video and makes the necessary connections between his parts. He uses discourse markers and the most appropriate grammatical constructions. Tenor, on the other hand, is the relationship between the participants or the people and the attitudes that they have towards the others. In this case, we find that the YouTuber is superior in power to the audience, and as such, he can decide what to talk about in his videos and how he wants to make them. And as we see in the sample, he can afford to talk about his past actions, such as joking about Cloud Tower, and also he can give orders to the audience in an attempt to guide them throughout the video. He has the power to do this, and this is reflected in this sample of language. Now, he's also inferior in power to the Winx Club writers, and sorry, given that the YouTuber has no decisions on how the series or the franchise will continue, he comes to this platform, YouTube, to manifestate, to reveal his opinion, his suggestions, and say everything that he wants to say. And even though he does have enough freedom to convey all his meanings, he also has to follow the YouTube rules, which have been set also by Google and Alphabet Incorporation, the company that owns these two, and that is settled and responds to the legal system of the United States of America. Finally, the field of the context is the topic that is being talked about. In this case, Season 6 of Winx Club as a whole. And it follows that these meanings, these ideational meanings, which are those meanings that talk about, that reflect our knowledge and experience in the world, these meanings are all over the video, from plain assertions, such as Season 6 is the worst season, no doubt, to arguments based on evidence and suggestions, among others. Let me now move on to genre. Since the YouTuber is drawing on the genre of a YouTube video, he's using a canonical formula to end the video. Namely, if you enjoy the video, check out my other videos, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications, etc. And also, I'd like to point that there is some borrowing from other genres. The YouTuber here seems to be mixing genres, in that he takes the structure of novels and presentations, or academic presentations. We can see here that the video has an intro, has 5 chapters, and a conclusion and an outro. Dividing the video into chapters is unusual for a YouTube video, but he seems to be taking this feature from novels, from the genre of novels. Likewise, he seems to be using the canonical introduction, body, conclusion pattern found in academic presentations, for instance. Although he doesn't say explicitly what he's going to do step by step, he nonetheless uses this structure: intro, all the chapters, all the body, and a conclusion. And in this case, I would argue that the YouTube video is mainly transactional. There is an attempt to establish a connection with the audience, be sympathetic towards kids and others, but the main goal is to transmit all these informations, this set of beliefs, opinions, suggestions, and the like. Let us now switch from a functional to a more formal approach and concentrate for the moment on the language. For this, I will follow Brown and Yule's discussion of the advantages of each manner of production of language, namely writing and speaking. In the case of these 2 extracts, and the whole video actually, it is obvious, or at least it is highly probable, that the YouTuber has first written all that he says, and then he reads it out loud. The evidence that we have for saying this are the grammar and the lexis. For the most part, they are elaborate, and the text as a whole is explicit, highly explicit, and decontextualized. It could stand alone without the other semiotic modes in the video and still be quite highly understandable. And it also reveals influence from written forms. Hardly surprising if we take into account that the YouTuber is also a writer and has already published 2 novels. And if we look at this sample, we will find instances of elaboration, nominalization, and even subordination, bold and oval acts, which are similar to Enchantix's sacrificial requirement, but far more shallow and incredibly rushed. These are all attempts to parallel the older seasons without actually putting the work into using that to say something of merit. All this reveals that the YouTuber chose to write this and have no pressure from external parties. He wanted to have all the time in the world to write this, to edit it before actually uploading it and reading it out loud. However, there are also some instances of vague and informal language. We can also find even swearing and deliberate pauses. In this sample, he says, "I'm not talking about what you all try to do," meaning the writers, with Season 8, with the whitewashing and terrible writing, and also Fate the Wind Saga with the whitewashing and terrible writing. This pause has not been accidental and he just wrote it down, but rather it's there with the pragmatic function of signaling that the problem is yet again the same: whitewashing and terrible writing. Now, when discussing the conversion from one mode to the other, either from writing to speaking or the other way around, Brown and Yule talk about whether the 2 texts are indeed the same, exactly the same or not. And in this case, they aren't. Once the YouTuber has the written script of what he wants to say, he doesn't say it exactly like that. He omits some words or he changes slightly the order of some patterns, and therefore we can talk about the same text here. For instance, here, in the written version, he says to go all in on the nostalgia. But when he speaks, when he reads this out loud, he says to go in on the nostalgia. These, along other minor changes in word order or the words themselves, make these two as technically two different texts. However, since he's the author of this text, he can correctly interpret what he has written and therefore convert the written script to the spoken medium. As we've seen here, he wrote an ellipsis to remind himself that he wants to cause this impression of encountering again the same problem. So he comes like this, and terrible writing, and also fade the wind saga with the same problem, whitewashing and terrible writing. Sorry. Now, we don't only have language making meanings here. And in fact, let us now take a look at the other forms that are used to convey meanings in this video. This is clearly an instance of a multimodal discourse. Even though I suggested that the YouTuber probably wrote what he said first and then he read it out loud, I would also argue that he prefers the spoken form to be an inherent part of the video. I mean, in order for the viewers, if the viewers wanted not to hear what he says, they would have to mute the video and turn the subtitles on. But however, as it is, given how YouTube videos are supposed to work with the audio-visual material and optional subtitles, he prefers the spoken form and to speak during the video, first of all, for economy reasons. He knows that having the viewers read instead of hear everything that he wants to say would be exhausting, if not boring. That would actually break the expectations of the genre, since most YouTube users expect to find audiovisual material in the videos, not just images and much less pure text. And also, when speaking, the YouTuber knows that he can exploit all these other semiotic modes, such as pitch height, the prominence and the tone systems, the voice registers, the speed and the general quality of his voice, among others. Thus, in these samples, we find the following. He uses proclaiming tones to convey that he has no idea of the true reason. When he says, why else would they have done it? He's inviting the audience to come up with their own answers before introducing the already suggested answers, aside from buying themselves time until the finale, but to reference Valtor, turning it invisible in season 3. In the next sample, he speeds up in the parts which he thinks are obvious. For example, where they met all the way back in season 1, which yes, is adorable. That is, by speeding up his voice, he conveys that this is already shared, this is already known by all fans, but then he slows down again to continue with his argument. And finally, he even laughs and sighs to convey meanings. When he says, and also fade the wind saga with the whitewashing and terrible writing, he laughs so as to convey that the problem is frustratingly the same yet again. And when he's wrapping up the video, he wraps it up by saying his name and a sort of epilogue for the video, such as, I'm the Unicorn of War, and I refuse to sit through season 6 ever again. That is, he introduces himself, or he reminds the audience of who he is, and then he provides an epilogue. Finally, we should also take into account the contribution of music throughout the video. We always have this soft background music, and in each chapter, including chapter 5 and conclusion and outro, we have a different type of background music to make the video less empty in terms of sounds, and also to ease the transition from one part to the other. And so far, we have focused on modes that are perceived through hearing. Now let's focus on those that are perceived through a visual channel. The first of those, the most obvious one, is writing. Even though the YouTuber based himself on a written script, he included it as the subtitles of the video so that the viewer can choose to listen to the YouTuber and read at the same time, or just listen to the YouTuber, or if rarely if he wants to just mute the video and read. But aside from that, writing is also used at the beginning of each section. As we can see here, chapter 5, Nostalgia Bait, he chooses to write the title of this chapter and not just say it out loud. This image, we're also seeing how images are being used here. These images show the viewer make a transition between what came before and what's coming next. And the font that is used will be recognized by many users, by the audience as the typical font that this YouTuber uses. That is to say, by using this font over and over again, this YouTuber establishes a typical font that he uses. And he uses a bigger size for the most important information, such as Nostalgia Bait, Thank You Patreons, and a smaller size for what he wants to be less salient. In this case, chapter 5, and the name of each of the Patreons. In this case, it is interesting that he chose to write the name of all his Patreons, primarily for two reasons. Because reading them out loud, one after the other, would be boring for the audience, and he wants them to stay until the very end. And also, it is more significant if he writes the name of his Patreons so that these names are fixed here and can be seen by everybody, not just heard and then forgotten. Also, the color and the drawings add a certain meaning. In this case, by making these transitions, he's using a warm, comfortable color, which is red, and these drawings, which he considers to be appropriate or beautiful to the audience. Finally, I included these other modes, namely the order and the organization of the video, because that is meaningful as well. The viewers can see that the YouTuber begins by an introduction, and then he goes section after section. He organizes the video really well, and that conveys meanings about not only the content, but the YouTuber himself. All these resources, the ways the YouTuber uses these modes convey the idea that he wants to have fun and wants the audience to have fun, but he's also serious in his endeavors. As we've seen, he prefers standard, formal, or even specialized language, but at the same time, he allows himself to swear or to use informal language. All this says that he is a YouTuber, and as such, he wants to have fun in his channel. He wants to be appealing to his audience, but at the same time, wants to be serious and organized with his content. After having looked at functions and forms, let's finally look at the contribution of three more approaches, the first of which is conversation analysis. And even though there is no synchronous, in-place, face-to-face interaction here, I would actually argue that the YouTuber acts on the presupposition that he's interacting with the audience, hence why he chooses to ask questions as if the audience were there. Next, we find interactional sociolinguistics, or IS. Its goal is to explain how people can interpret the meanings others intend to convey, in a variety of everyday communicative situations. As such, interaction is seen here as a process of continuous negotiation of meaning. This implies both inferring what others try to convey, as well as monitoring how one's own contributions are received. Again, since this is an instance of asynchronous communication, the YouTuber can actually monitor how each viewer receives his meanings, and the audience is left to infer by themselves what the YouTuber is conveying. To do this, they use background knowledge, which goes beyond lexical information. So to interpret what the YouTuber is saying, they must know, for instance, what Season 6 is and its context, namely the fact that it was released on on the 10th anniversary of the franchise, what Rainbow is, the company that created Winx Club, what nostalgia is, what the pixies in the series are, what Easter eggs are, etc. But they also have to draw conversational inferences, the procedure by which they assess what the YouTuber intends to communicate, basing themselves on the YouTuber's contextualization cues, which provide information about how language is being used. And this can be, again, any kind of verbal sign. As we have seen in the semiotic modes, this can also include the prominence and tones system. When he says here, for instance, even if it's for a younger audience, the kids deserve better. They deserve something of the quality that we had when we grew up. So the audience can infer that the YouTuber does indeed believe that the kids deserve better, and that he's placing himself among the audience as fans that remember the golden age of the series. So far, we have seen how the YouTuber interacts with the audience, as well as the ways in which the audience infers what the YouTuber tries to convey. But he doesn't convey his ideas or his meanings in a neutral way. On the contrary, he constructs reality and identities in a certain way. But regardless of whether people do or don't say what their intentions, thoughts, and ideologies are, on revealing their presence in any instance of language is the aim of critical discourse analysis, or CDA. It focuses on the relation between discourse and other social elements, such as ideologies, power, institutions, social identities, and the like. It can be characterized as a social movement of politically committed analysts because they want to understand, expose, and challenge social inequality. And this is clearest, as I pointed before, in this sample, when the YouTuber says the kids deserve better, something of the quality that we had when we grew up. He's being politically committed here. And once the YouTuber has recognized this problem, namely that the writers are creating a bad quality product because they aren't sure of whether appealing older viewers or creating something softer for younger audiences, he then proposes a solution, a spin-off while the main show continues to become more mature. That way, both audiences get what they want in their own products. He places himself as one more member of a larger group of YouTubers who do similar reviews or similar content about Winx Club. All of them carry out, this YouTuber, just like these other YouTubers, carry out individual actions in specific situations that are constituent parts of the larger group actions in a broader social structure. Thus, this YouTuber is only just one member of this broader community that is also interested in Winx Club and more generally in making reviews about animated series. Since the YouTuber wants to become a recognized and distinguished member within this larger community, he uses not only the formulaic ending of a YouTube video, but also adds his personal marks in this. When he says, as we have seen, he uses an epilogue such as, anyway, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my other videos, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, because YouTube hates creators. Here again, he's not afraid of challenging those that are more powerful than him. In this case, because YouTube makes it hard for actual YouTubers to earn money nowadays. In this video, I have attempted to analyze this corpus, the final two parts of this video, predominantly from the perspective of discourse analysis, but also taking into account other approaches such as SFL, CA, IS, and CDA. Thank you.